Hello, welcome to another Parallel Project Training podcast. I'm with Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hello.
And we're working through the APM PPQ qualification, and we're up to the second criteria in leadership and team management. And this one is about establishing and developing teams to achieve the overall aims of the project. So it's quite closely related to the last podcast, which is about leadership, but this is more focused on the team itself, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, this one is more to do with how the project manager and the team will work together.
Yeah. So we're actually just going to take a break halfway through this because there's six criteria. Yeah. So we'll do the first three, then we'll just have a little break for a couple of minutes, and then we'll carry on and do the second three. So let's jump straight into it. So critically evaluate the tools and techniques and leadership behaviours. So we're looking at tools, techniques, and leadership behaviours which can establish and sustain trust. That's an important thing in projects, isn't it? Trust, confidence. Yeah, I mean, if you lack confidence in your project manager, you're doomed, in my opinion. And collaboration to maintain momentum of the project. Yeah, I mean, all projects hit that sort of wall of, oh my gosh, this is more difficult than we thought. How do we keep going? Well, it's, oh my gosh. So let's just talk about, how do we break this one down? So we talk about tools, techniques, and behaviours.
Yes. Okay. So throughout this learning outcome of establish and develop teams, there are some models that we can fall back on and use as the basis of thinking about our approaches to answering any of these different assessment criteria. Where you start talking about tools and techniques to establish and sustain trust and confidence, it could suggest that you've got a team that hasn't reached that stage yet. And if we think about Tuckman and the forming storming model, then it suggests we've got a team that might be in its early stages of development. So,
yeah, or it could be that it's at that high trust level, but actually things have changed. Or is that the next one? That's the next one. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Apologise.
No, because the first one, 2.1, is about sustaining trust.
Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely right. And the Tuckman model says this as well, that you could be at a high-performing team, but if something alters significantly in the team, it can cause them to go back to the beginning again.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get some team members leave and new ones join, which might happen because of going through a different phase of work, if you've just simply changing the phase of work, there's different skill sets and priorities that the team now faces. And so it can go back to that situation of disruption in the team and then having to rebuild and reestablish and move forward. In a well-established team, that can happen quite quickly. But if you've got a new team coming together for the first time at the start of a project, then it can take a little bit longer. And that's what we could be thinking about here in this one is if you're bringing the team together as a project manager, how are you going to encourage the team to trust both yourself and each other? How can you encourage them to have, or how can you create an environment in which they can be confident in themselves and in what the project's aiming to achieve and how it's going to do it? And what can you do to encourage them to work together?
Yeah.
So there are several ways you could think about for doing this. So one of them could be about simply a kickoff meeting and getting the team together, doing the things that, the Tuckman model alludes to, like setting out a vision and a goal, doing introductions, icebreaker type things of who's who and roles and responsibilities. You might even think about doing something like a team social event. So, that might be just simply getting together half an hour before the official start time and having coffee and donuts or whatever you want to bring in. It could be doing something like an evening social event, like going bowling or something like that. The problem with something like that is a lot of people have other commitments and some people just really don't buy into that sort of thing at all. So, it's not always the right solution, but simply having the opportunity in some way to get together and have an informal time to be able to talk and get to know each other can help to establish that understanding of who's who and create the foundation for building trust in each other.
I had something to that. So just remember going once to a project forum internally, and we got an external academic in, and he did a session on trust and how do you build trust. And he said trust and confidence are built by keeping your promises and being knowledgeable. So in order to establish and sustain trust and confidence as a new project leader in the organization, you have to keep your promises. So you have to be really clear that what you promised to the sponsor at the beginning, in that initial startup phase, you have to deliver. Because if you fail to deliver those promises, then that trust will corrode quite quickly and that confidence will evaporate.
Absolutely.
I think you're right about the team working and thinking about Tuckman and how to develop people and where they are, but also it's about that personal credibility and trust. And you've got to win the confidence of that organization very quickly, because usually the case studies are set in a particularly tricky situation. So how do you come in and establish that trust and confidence? There's a couple of good papers, actually. The APM's done some research on survival skills in project management that I strongly recommend people read, because it's quite recent and they have really good organizations involved in it. They talk a lot about trust and confidence and collaboration, and there as being hints and tips how to do it.
And it's particularly relevant in the case study where the candidate is usually being brought into a project that's halfway through. The previous project manager has, for some reason, gone, either been taken off or left the organization or whatever. And so you're coming into a team that has already started to work together, but maybe hasn't built up the confidence in themselves and each other because they don't have that level of capability in project management. So you're facing several challenges there in that the team don't know you, so they won't trust you yet. They might have an element of trust because you're an experienced PM, but they don't know you as a person or whether you have that real capability and understanding of working in their environment. They don't have the confidence and trust in each other, and maybe in their own individual skills and ability to actually complete the work successfully.
And usually the sponsor will have lost trust in project managers in general. So I think having clearly, under promise and over deliver, have some early wins that you deliver early on that delivers something. Even if you say, I'm going to create a plan for the deliver the project in 2 weeks' time, make sure you deliver that in 2 weeks' time. So be really careful that you actually keep your promises, keep your action lists, you deliver your actions and demonstrate that behavior. And that will build the sponsor's confidence in you and the team's confidence in your ability to deliver the project. And it just can be just little things like turning up for meetings early or just or writing the action minutes and actually making sure we do the actions. So it's very tangible, this stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the key thing in the assessment is to provide specific examples of what you could commit to. And demonstrate in the next. So you can say that, I need to make promises to do stuff and stick to it. That's great, but that's quite generic. What specifically are you going to promise to do
in the next 10 days?
In the next 10 days.
What's your 10-day plan?
Yes.
And if it could be just a plan, or it could be just, I don't know, I'll sort out this problem, or I'll establish an issue register. It could be just something. We have to be able to do it and demonstrate to,
something that's tangible that you can commit to, and then that can be one of your alternatives, because this is an evaluate question. So you're having to set out two things that you could do. And whilst you could say that, well, both of them are things that as a PM I should be doing, you would want to prioritize one of those as being the first key focus. Because that's the key thing to remember throughout all of the evaluates is you must, where it's asking for two, you must make a recommendation. And simply saying, I'll do both, is not
that'll depend on your personal style and leadership as a project manager. Some people, like if you were leading it, you'd probably go for a team workshop, whereas I'd go, well, I'm going to get the plan done. And if I have to work the weekend to, and actually that's there isn't a right answer here. It's because all of us manage projects in different ways, don't we?
Absolutely.
Let's scoot along. 2.2, critically analyse. This is an analyse question. So we got to look at the pros and cons of two approaches, but not make a recommendation. How to respond to changes in the project environment. So the APM's definition of environment is external stuff. to ensure that an individual of team requirements and interests are maintained and supported. So this is quite a complicated. Teams and interests and requirements are supported. Help me with this one, Tom.
So with this one, it's a bit like the leadership one, where the first one is about styles and behaviours, and the second one is more about the practical tools. It's the same here. The first one is about behaviours, and it uses that term in 2.1. And here it's about the specific things that you can do to help and support the team as it moves forward. Mm-hmm. And again, we can think about the Tuckman model and how you move from forming to storming into norming, and what we can do because that's a changing environment.
Yeah.
But we can also think about some of the leadership models. So whether that's Max Landsberg and his skill will model, or the Hersey and Blanchard situational leadership, they're about the way in which an individual or a team develop and evolve, and so their needs or expectations or requirements change as they get more and more confident and capable in doing their activities.
Yeah. And here, in this environment, do they mean the same as context? The sort of political, sociological, technical environment, and how that might change in the project, or do they just mean the physical working environment?
In this one, it could be anything to do with the context or the way in which the project is working. So a project is naturally evolving through different phases of work. So, moving into planning and the kinds of activities you do there, and then as you move into deployment and the way that the product is going to go through the basic sort of steps of design, build, and test. So you're going to have new people coming in and some dropping out. You're going to have different kinds of work happening. You'll have risks that occur, and therefore change the environment temporarily for the project, because there's new things you might have to do that yet perhaps hadn't been scheduled. That might have been there as potentially need to be done in the event that a risk occurs, but suddenly something becomes a higher priority and there's a bit more time pressure because now we have additional work to do over and above our day-to-day stuff. It could be about the change in political environment. So if the context of the project in the organisation changes, it becomes higher or lower priority. Senior stakeholders change and have a different emphasis. So it could be to do with that. So anything really where the context in which the team is doing their work is changing and the project manager needs to adapt.
That's why it's an Analyse question.
Yes.
Light bulb moment, Paul. Because we're looking to see, okay, so I could do an analysis of the environment in which the team's working. I could look at those changes in those environments, and I could think about different ways in which I could respond to that changing environment.
Yeah. So this is thinking back to the Hersey and Blanchard type of approach where, the first stage is direct or tell.
Yeah.
And then as you get more capable, then the individual or the team start to become more involved in the decision making. So you're taking more of a coaching, mentoring, supporting role. Okay. And then you get the team to the point where it becomes high performing in Tuckman's model, and you can afford to delegate to them and empower them to make their own decisions to a certain level.
So you're pretty much going directly with the body of knowledge reference in here, which is sort of team development type of approaches.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's quite a broad question, that actually. If you just read it at face value, that could go many ways, couldn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. 2.3, critically analyze tools and techniques that are used to develop and maintain an effective team.
Yeah, so here we're looking at, again, supporting people through that cycle of Tuckman and, moving into norming and performing, or as the leadership models suggest that, people become more competent and capable. Their maturity grows as they get more experienced in doing a role. So what can we do here? So again, something like coaching and mentoring might be relevant if helping a team to move from, sort of low skill, low confidence into a high skill, high confidence way. But it could also be about ensuring that there is good, clear understanding of work that's needed. So here we're talking about an effective team, and a team is effective if there's clarity around what's expected of them in terms of their specific tasks and goals. So having a clear plan and having allocation of work to individuals can really help as well. So this is where, for example, a RACI might also be relevant. Because
we're back to our process model, our model that we talked about earlier. You can think about the individual and the team as a sort of like people side of the issue. But you can then also think about the process bit, about clarity about what they're doing, and also clarity about how you might manage changes in the environment or changes in the project. So an effective team, for instance, is supported by having effective project management processes, like you're controlling the changes and understanding the risks. Is that a way to
definitely
think of this?
Yeah, because we need to ensure that we support and control any changes that are happening, be that formal things through change control that could be going on, but also as the work is evolving and developing, we again need to make sure that we keep the team aligned and we have the right team members there, and we keep them focused on the new activities that are coming in and what their role is going to be in that. So it is important in that criterion to think about developing the team. So what can you do to help them to grow and mature into a level of capability, but also maintain the team? Mm-hmm. So how might things change, and what might you need to do as a PM to ensure that what you have in place stays relevant and up to date?
So how would you maintain a team?
Through ensuring you've got the right team members with the right skills according to the work that is needed. So as a project progresses, some team members will naturally need to leave because they no longer have activities to do, and some new ones will need to come in. So have we got a plan for inducting new team members in, bring them up to speed with what's going on? Have we got the right skill set in the team for the work that's coming up? So, we don't keep the team constant. We need to involve some people earlier on and others later on. So it's about making sure that you have the right balance of skills and expertise, but also that there is that things like the RACI are maintained and updated.
Yeah, so it's back to people process, isn't it? They've got clearly defined roles and responsibilities, and also that you've got supporting the team in their personal development to adapt to the new skills and challenges they face in the project, really.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. So we've got 6 criteria here. So we're just going to take a little break now and work through the other 3, partly for your benefit and partly for ours. So welcome back. So critically evaluate the role of monitoring and feedbacking, recognizing and discussing individual contributions. I think this one's quite clear, but let's see what Tom thinks.
I think it's quite clear as well.
Oh, well, we agreed. Let's move on to the next one then.
Yeah, I mean, when if you're going to be talking to individual team members about what's going into the project and what they've been doing, then we need to ensure that we have openness and clarity around the contributions that individuals are making, and are they achieving their targets? So we need to monitor performance of individuals and the team and give them regular feedback on that performance. It enables us to understand how confident individuals are feeling, whether they are happy with the workload that they've got, that they feel their skill set is being used. So are we applying high-skill people on low-skill work? Are there corrective actions that need to be taken? Is there any personal development that needs to be undertaken?
Yeah, could we use our process and people model here too? Because I was thinking monitoring and feedback, you can think about that in a project control context, monitoring the plan and feedbacking, are you on track? Why are you falling behind, and what do I need to do to help you to deliver the project? But also as a personal monitoring feedback, sort of one-to-ones, how are you feeling about the work? Are you feeling supported? And what development needs do you have as an individual? I think that would be a way of thinking about this question.
Yeah, definitely, because the overall project progress is the sum of the progress of the individual tasks and the individuals carrying out those tasks. So if we're going to ensure that we make good project progress and we can report effectively on what's happening in the project, we need to know what's happening at individual and team level.
Yeah, the two are quite closely linked, aren't they? So you might be doing a project review and one of the work package leads is not really performing. And so it becomes clear in the meeting they're not performing. But then you might follow that up with a personal one-to-one to say, well, are you okay? Have you got the support you need? Are there any, personal issues, or are there any, have you got too much work, or, so it's more of a team development, leadership and communications thing. So the two are closely linked in the project manager's mind, I would have thought,
Yeah, definitely. It's something that in an agile environment you're doing very regularly. You're doing it every day when you have your stand up. What are you achieving or aiming to achieve today? What are the barriers to you achieving that? And we should be doing that in a linear environment as well. Just because we have tasks that take longer than one day or whatever to complete doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing the monitoring and feedback on a regular basis. Whether that's weekly, fortnightly. We're not talking about formal performance reviews. That comes later. What we're talking about is staying on top of what's going on in the team and having check-ins on a regular basis, with the opportunity for people to contribute on one-to-one basis as well.
Yeah, but a feedback session, where you do like the Grow coaching model is different from a monitoring and feedback at a project progress meeting. I think that's the key thing to understand with this assessment criteria, is that there are two different types of monitoring and feedback. There's project monitoring and feedback, which we do all the time and probably everyone talks about all the time, but there's actually that one-to-one setting personal objectives for people, development objectives, and monitoring and feedbacking on their personal performance and interpersonal performance. And those two are quite closely intertwined, I suspect. So people might get a little bit confused. So let's move on to 2.5 then. Critically evaluate the relationship between performance management, the team development cycle, and the motivation to achieve success in a project. This is a very interesting one.
So performance management is something that sort of builds on what we were talking about in the previous one. So whereas 2.4 is about having the regular check-ins and discussions, which can be done on a sort of an informal basis, 2.5 suggests something along more formal lines. Now, this is always an interesting one for a project manager, because typically if we're working in a matrix environment, an individual has a line manager to whom they report for their normal role activities, but they're temporarily reporting into a project manager. So the project manager does have a part to play in providing formal feedback into somebody's performance, which might go into their PDRs or whatever you call them in the organization, performance development reviews. So we're looking at something a bit more formal here. If we have a individual or team that's assigned on either a permanent or a semi-permanent basis to a PM. So if we're looking at something like a secondment across to a project or a permanently assigned project team, then the project manager has got a more formal role to play in conducting that performance management on their own. The amount of it you do may well depend on the stage that the individual is at in terms of their development and capability, but also the stage that the project is at. So if we've got a new team, then we might want to do it a bit more often.
Sorry, just say that again, Tom, because I spoke over you.
So if we've got a new team, then we might want to do it a bit more often than if we've got a well-established team.
It's interesting because evaluate the relationship between performance management, the team development cycle, and motivation to achieve the project success. So I read that to say, how can we tie the performance management process, like appraisal, like PD, what you call PDRs, like training and development, with the overall success of the project? So what is it in the project that we can use as a vehicle to develop our people? They might have someone who's dead interested in AI or coding or, and how can we link the project's objectives with their professional or personal development, and there might be an opportunity to develop new skills or lead a work stream or, some development opportunity that comes out of the project, so that you can tie their personal objectives to the project objectives. And that's going to get real motivation. If they're going to see, well, I'm going to do this project and I'm going to do some new work that interests me and I'll move me on in my career as well as delivering your project, then you've cracked it, haven't you?
Yeah, if you can get that balance between the two, the priority is always to deliver the project and deliver the project's goals rather than provide a development opportunity for an individual.
Yeah.
So we don't always have that luxury of being able to develop somebody first and then get into the project work. Sometimes we need people who can hit the ground running, but it might be that they can come in to do work and they can enhance or develop their skills further by working in the project environment.
Yeah. And it's looking for those opportunities. So that's the sort of what I read into this is that linkage between performance management and motivation to achieve the success of the project, so those two are aligned. And that could be actually just pay and a bonus, couldn't it?
Could be.
Yeah. Could be lining. I mean, I've seen that done, where a personal bonus, especially on a large project where everyone's going to be made redundant at the end of the project, we have a sort of retention bonus that ties into their appraisal, tied to the success of the project. So that retention bonus increases if the project delivered successfully. Because you don't want your best people leaving just as it gets the most difficult. But
Well, absolutely, yeah. Well, it's always a challenge in many projects is we get to the end and people start thinking, well, I can see the end is in sight. What's lined up next?
Why should I stay?
Yeah. If you're in
just when you get into what I used to call commissioning or handing over, all your best people are walking out the door and go, oh, no, not aligned, is it?
Yeah. It's the golden handcuffs.
Yes. I've never had golden handcuffs. I fancy some gold handcuffs. If you've got any in your drawer, send them over. Right, 2.6. Critically evaluate the extent to which conflict could be used to improve individual and team performance. Now, this is an interesting one because most people will see conflict as a negative thing. How can it improve team performance? Surely it can't.
The first thing to point out on this one is this isn't about resolving a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is about the way in which, if we've had a conflict that's existed and been resolved, it could be used in a positive way moving forward, or it could be about the way in which we can introduce conflict in order to get a team to work better, more effectively. So there is such a thing as positive conflict, and we can do it to test what's happening. So we can say, look, we've got to present something here. We've got to put an idea or a proposal forward. I need somebody to really test and challenge this. So be deliberately awkward and ask difficult questions. Mm-hmm. So you're artificially creating a bit of conflict in order to thoroughly test what's happening. You can create conflicts in a positive way by setting targets for teams to achieve and, giving them goals. So not necessarily playing them off against each other, in a negative way, but trying to encourage some healthy competition between sub teams or individuals within a project.
Yeah.
You could also use it to try to inspire and create new ideas. So again, if we've got something here and we can tear it apart, then maybe we can come up with a better way of moving forward.
Yeah. I can remember a team once I was doing an inspection of a reactor pressure vessel in Wales, and there was another team doing one in the southeast of England, and we were both on this very tight timeline. They used to send us faxes saying how much they'd done each day.
Yeah.
I could tell what it was in faxes. We used to send faxes back.
Yeah.
And it was just, we all liked each other. It was all just a bit of friendly challenge, really.
Yeah, and that's healthy, positive conflict. It can be used in a way to encourage better performance.
Yeah.
If it is in relation to conflict that's happened between individuals, then we could use that as an example of how we can have differences of opinion that we can talk through and we can find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the way in which, if we do have differences of opinion, we can show respect and understanding and willingness to listen in order to be able to find a solution. So it can encourage better behaviours, if you like, between individuals as well, and also give the confidence of individuals to be able to raise difficulties or challenges that they face and know that it will be fairly considered, and where possible, a solution brought in that might satisfy their needs, or if it can't be, then they can understand why that happens.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thanks.